The Galactic Council chamber floated in silence, deep in the core of the Andorra system. Hundreds of alien species sat in tall silver seats that curved around the center like a spiral. Holograms flickered above their heads, showing star maps, security reports, and long chains of unreadable data. High Chancellor Drevik, a tall creature with 4 glowing eyes and golden horns, stood from his seat. His voice echoed through the room. "A foreign fleet has crossed the outer rim," he said. "Unknown origin. No response to our signals. No known alliance claims them." A murmur rolled across the room. Tentacles shifted, wings twitched, heads turned toward each other in fear and confusion. "Could it be a rebel cell?" asked one of the delegates, his voice shaking. "Pirates," another said. "Or smugglers. Nothing to panic over." "No," Drevik replied. "Their ships are unlike anything in our archives. Black metal, silent engines, energy signatures, unstable." At the back of the chamber an old voice spoke, soft but firm. "Humans." The room went silent again. All eyes turned to the speaker, Archivist Uruk, the oldest member of the council. His blue skin looked like cracked ice, and his breathing came slow. Drevik narrowed his eyes. "That's impossible. Humans are just a myth, a tale from ancient records." "They were real," Uruk said. "You erased them. We all did. After the War of Ash," one delegate laughed. "War of Ash. That story is thousands of cycles old." "They were monsters," said another. "Wild, brutal, self-destructive, and extinct," Drevik said sharply. "Let's stay focused." But Uruk didn't stop. "You can pretend they were legends. You can ignore what happened. But if that fleet belongs to them, you'll remember why they were feared." A loud ping interrupted him. A hologram blinked to life in the center of the room. It was a transmission, audio only. A cold human voice echoed into the chamber. "We remember what you did. We remember Earth." The silence in the council broke like glass. Several delegates stood, shouting over each other. "How can this be? Earth was destroyed. No species could survive that purge." But no answers came. Drevik slammed his staff against the ground. Silence. The room fell quiet again. Drevik looked at the signal. "Send a scout ship. Unarmed show we mean peace." "And if they don't want peace?" Uruk asked. Drevik did not answer. Hours later, the scout ship, a light cruiser from the Grolan system, approached the unknown fleet. It was a small vessel, built for speed, with a single diplomat on board and a friendly beacon flashing green. The human fleet did not respond. It just sat there, 30 dark ships, floating like shadows in space. Their shapes were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Some looked like knives, others like giant wings. No lights, no movement. The Grolan diplomat sent another message. "This is the Galactic Council. We come in peace. Identify yourselves." Nothing then. A moment later the fleet moved. No weapons fired, no shields activated. But one of the black ships shifted toward the Grolan cruiser. Slowly, silently. The lights inside the cruiser began to flicker. The diplomat screamed, "Something's inside our systems." His voice was cut off. Back in the council chamber, the live feed went dark. All that remained was static. Panic spread fast. "We have to mobilize. They just killed our envoy. No species has that kind of technology." Drevik stared at the black screen. His golden horns glowed brighter as fear twisted in his stomach. "They never forgot," Uruk said behind him. "You tried to erase them. But humans, they don't disappear. They wait, they plan, and when they return, they bring the storm." Outside the chamber, in the dark skies of the outer rim, the human fleet drifted closer to the next star system. Their message repeated once again, this time on every open frequency in the galaxy. "You took our sun. We'll take your stars." The silence inside the Galactic Council chamber was heavy. No one moved. No one spoke. For the first time in centuries, the council had no answers. The fleet was still out there. Black ships. No signal, no demands, no explanation, just silence and fear. Archivist Uruk stood near the window, staring at the stars. His eyes, old and dim, looked far beyond the present. "They think this is new," he said quietly, "but this started long ago." High Chancellor Drevik turned toward him. "Explain yourself." Uruk didn't face him. Instead, he began to speak, slow and steady, as if pulling memories from the dark corners of time. Centuries ago, before the Galactic Council ruled the stars, Earth had made contact with alien life. Not with peace but with fire. Human ships had been crude at first, loud, heavy, and clumsy. But they improved fast, too fast. Within decades, Earth built ships that could match any in the galaxy. They studied everything, learned faster than anyone had seen. When humans entered the galactic stage, they didn't ask for space, they took it. Not with cruelty, but with confidence. Some worlds welcomed them, some feared them, others tried to stop them. That was a mistake. A coalition was formed. 13 powerful species. Together they launched an attack on Earth's colonies. The sky over Mars burned for days. But humanity did not surrender. They struck back with weapons the galaxy had never seen. Gravity mines, neural disruptors, AI-guided drones that moved like shadows. One battle changed everything. The siege of Kyrox, a human fleet of only 20 ships, destroyed 3 full alien armadas, not because they had better numbers, because they had better minds. After that, the galaxy had only one option: erase them. Urok's voice dropped lower. They called it the Purge of Earth. All human systems were bombed, communications jammed, history rewritten. Survivors hunted, but humans don't break that easily. Some escaped deep into dark space, others buried themselves in the ruins of Earth, building in silence. The Council declared humanity extinct. Libraries removed their name. Maps erased their planets. The schools taught they were only stories, violent beasts who had vanished long ago. But Uruk had always known. They weren't gone, he said. They were watching, and now they're back. Drevik clenched his fists. Why would they return now? What do they want? Uruk turned slowly. You didn't just attack their world, you stole their future. They remember that. Just then, a new alert blinked across the chamber. All screens lit up. Another signal, said the technician. Not from the fleet, from the outer colonies. Drevik leaned in. The message was short, 5 words, repeated on every channel. We never stopped moving forward. In the outer colonies, panic had already begun. 3 planets had gone dark. Not destroyed, just silenced. No communication, no traffic, no energy readings. 1 patrol ship managed to escape and send a warning. They controlled the networks. The pilot gasped. They hacked the entire planet, took control without firing a single shot. The systems obeyed them. Then silence. Back in the council chamber, Drevik looked around the room. We need answers. We need defense. Mobilize the fleets. No, Uruk said firmly. That's what they expect. Drevik narrowed his eyes. You want us to do nothing? I want you to listen, Uruk replied. Because if we keep treating them like monsters, they will show us what real monsters look like. At the edge of the galaxy, the human fleet moved again. This time, they didn't send a warning. They sent a gift. A pod was dropped into open space, glowing silent, untouched by weapons. It floated gently until a nearby alien research ship pulled it in. Inside was a single object, a book, not digital, not holographic, a real hand-bound book, covered in black leather, stamped with a symbol no alien recognized. But on the first page, written in clear, simple English, were the words, "History isn't what you say it is. It's what we remember." Darkness stretched across the star system of Veltra 7, once filled with trade ships and glowing space stations. The skies now sat empty, silent, cold. The planet below still rotated, unaware of what waited above in orbit. A human ship hovered like a shadow. No lights, no engine sound. Its shape was smooth, deadly, and unfamiliar. Alien scanners couldn't read its materials. Even light seemed to bend around it. On the surface, General Korv of the Veltrian Defense Force stood on a tower's edge, staring at the black shape in the sky. What does it want? Asked his second-in-command. Korv's jaw tightened. It wants us to remember. Back in the Galactic Council, chaos ruled. Leaders shouted over one another. The species that hadn't spoken in decades now screamed in panic. Planets were falling silent, one by one. Not a single shot fired, just silence. They're disabling entire systems. Our fleets won't respond. We're losing planets without a fight. Chancellor Drevik slammed his staff down. Enough. The chamber quieted. Drevik looked toward the Council's AI core. Find me a way to communicate with them. I want answers. Hours later, a signal came. Not through regular channels. It appeared in the personal minds of each council member through a neural flash message. No sound, no visuals. Just a message burned into their thoughts. You erased our voice, so we learned to speak in silence. A young alien scientist named Trin stood alone in the Grand Archives. She had studied human myths for years. Others mocked her, called her obsessed, but she never stopped. Now those stories were walking. Again she looked at the book left in the human pod. Each page was written by hand. It wasn't a weapon, but it held something far more dangerous. Truth, one chapter explained. How humans had stopped trusting machines after the purge. Instead, they trained minds, created a silent code, built ships with no networks to hack, no systems to trace. Their technology became invisible, unstoppable, undeniable. T single quotes. Rin closed the book. Her hands shook. They didn't just survive, she whispered. They adapted, in ways we never imagined. Suddenly her console lit up. A private message appeared encrypted with a code never seen before. It read, "You studied us. You understood. Come see what we became." In the outer orbit of the dead moon Carrick 3, a massive black gate opened. A single ship emerged, shaped like a crescent, with blue lights that glowed like stars. The doors slowly opened, revealing a dark interior. No crew visible, no sound. Trin stepped aboard alone. Her breath caught as she walked through the ship. The walls were alive with shifting lights, patterns moving like thoughts. No weapons, no noise, just calm. In the center chamber stood a single figure, human, tall, silent, wearing a uniform of smooth black armor. His eyes watched her carefully. "You are the one who remembered," he said. Trin nodded slowly. "You didn't return to destroy," she said. "You came to remind us." The man didn't smile, but there was no anger in his face. "We came to restore balance," he said. You buried the past, we brought it back. Back in the council, panic grew. Military leaders begged for war. We must strike before they take more systems. Others shouted for peace. We started this, we need to talk. Drevik stood silent. Finally he spoke. If they wanted to destroy us, they already would have. A fresh message arrived. This time, it was visual. A hologram filled the council chamber. It showed Earth, not the burned planet from old records, not the ruins they remembered. This Earth was reborn. Green forests, clean oceans, cities floating in the sky, people walking freely beneath glowing towers. Humanity hadn't just returned, they had evolved. The message ended with a single sentence: we were never gone, only waiting for the stars to remember. The Galactic Council had never faced silence like this, not from fear, but from truth. For the first time in thousands of cycles, the Council had no lies left to hide behind. The image of Earth alive, glowing, evolved played on every screen. Across the galaxy, the message was clear. Humanity had not died. They had advanced, faster, quieter, and now they had returned. Chancellor Drevik walked through the halls of the Council alone. His steps echoed, each one heavier than the last. He wasn't thinking like a leader now. He was thinking like a survivor. Behind closed doors, leaders argued. Generals shouted. Diplomats wept. But Drevik knew the real danger wasn't the human fleet, it was their silence. They hadn't made demands. They hadn't asked for war. That scared him more than anything. Elsewhere in the building, Trin returned from her meeting on the human ship. Her expression was combat, her mind raced. The human she had met wasn't angry. He was focused. He didn't threaten. He spoke with reason. But his words carried weight. We didn't come to burn your worlds. We came to remind you who we are. Trin now understood. The humans weren't acting out of revenge, they were delivering a warning. And the galaxy wasn't ready to hear it. Meanwhile, on the planet Zora 5, fear turned into fire. Local defense forces panicked. Without orders, they launched missiles toward a human vessel entering orbit. The missiles didn't reach the human ship, vanished, then reappeared above their capital. In seconds, every weapon system on Zora 5 shut down. Entire power grids collapsed. Satellites fell from the sky. The human fleet had taken control without firing a single shot. Then they left, not one person harmed, only systems erased. A message was left behind in the clouds, written in light. We do not destroy, we disable. Back in the council chamber, emergency meetings were held. Drevik stood at the center, surrounded by shouting voices. They're humiliating us. Where are our fleets? We have to respond. One leader, an elder from the Inari species, raised a hand. Respond with what? They don't attack with weapons. They use knowledge, power, intelligence. We are not fighting soldiers, we are facing a civilization that outgrew violence. The room fell silent. Trin entered, holding the human book. She placed it on the center table. This book holds their story, she said, but you erased it. You called them myths. Now their truth is stronger than our lies. She turned toward Drevik. Do you know who erased them from history? Drevik's expression hardened. That's irrelevant now. No, she said. It matters. Because they remember. Later that night, Trin sat alone in her quarters. She scanned the book again, but something new had appeared on the last page, a message written just for her. They know who betrayed Earth. Her hands trembled. Someone in the council had helped wipe out humanity, and the humans had not forgotten. The next morning, 3 major colonies reported strange activity. Their leaders were missing. No signs of force, no damage, no bodies, only a symbol left behind, a single star surrounded by a black ring. The symbol of Earth's last united government. Word spread fast. The humans were not only disabling systems, they were removing the architects of their destruction. Quietly, one by one, Trin rushed to the council with the warning. They're not here to conquer, they're here to correct the past. Drevik stood, pale and cold. We buried that past for a reason. But they didn't, she said. They remembered names, actions, betrayals, and they're acting with purpose. Another message flashed across every screen in the chamber. This time, it wasn't just words, it was a list, 20 names. Each one was a council member who had voted in secret for the destruction of Earth. Centuries ago, beside each name, a red mark 10 that had already vanished. The last line of the message read, "This is not vengeance, this is balance." The council chamber was quiet. No debates, no shouting, only fear. 20 names had appeared on the screens. Names of leaders who once voted to wipe out Earth. Now 10 of those leaders were missing. No signs of struggle, no farewell. Just gone. Humanity hadn't hidden it. They left the truth out in the open. They weren't hiding in shadows anymore. Chancellor Drevik stood near the tall window, his back to the rest of the chamber. His eyes followed the stars outside, but his mind was elsewhere. He was on Earth again, not the living one in the human transmission, but the Earth he remembered, burning, silent, dead. He had been younger then, ambitious, afraid of what humanity could become, so he voted with the others. He called it protection now. It felt like guilt. Trin walked into the chamber carrying the old human book. Her eyes went straight to Drevik. "You knew," she said softly, "didn't you?" Drevik didn't answer. Trin opened the book again, pointing at a page near the middle. The last president of Earth recorded the final vote. They knew someone from the council betrayed them. She turned the book toward him. They mentioned a name. Drevik slowly turned around. His voice was calm, but his eyes were heavy. They didn't need proof. They knew we were afraid. Trin stepped forward. Fear doesn't erase truth. And now, truth has come back. A red alert flashed. Another colony had gone silent. This time, it wasn't a small one. Vexa Prime, a key hub for the Council's military command, was completely offline. Hundreds of ships, thousands of systems shut down in minutes. No attack, no bodies, no damage, only one thing left behind, a transmission. A voice spoke. We are not monsters, we are memory, and memory never forgets. The Council scrambled to respond. Emergency meetings, secret discussions, backup fleets all moving at once, but none of it mattered. Every plan they made was already known. The humans had access to old networks, hidden codes, ancient files that the Council thought had been lost. Every move the Council made was being watched, every plan undone before it began. On a cold moon near the edge of Council space, something even more shocking happened. A human ship landed. For the first time, humans walked on an alien world not to fight, but to talk. 3 figures stepped out, wearing black armor with glowing symbols. No weapons drawn, no threats spoken. They met with a group of neutral diplomats. The message was simple. We are not here for war. We are here to correct history. News spread fast. Some species supported the humans, others feared them, but many began to question everything they had been taught. Were humans really monsters, or were they just survivors? Trin watched the events unfold with growing dread. She had studied human behavior. She knew how they thought. They were builders, but when pushed, they could become something else. Not beasts, not savages, but forces of nature. And the storm was getting closer. Drevik called for a private meeting. Only Trin was invited in his quiet office, surrounded by ancient maps and old council flags. He spoke the words he had never said aloud. I was part of the vote. Trin didn't react. She already knew Drevik looked tired, older than ever. We thought we were protecting the galaxy. We feared what humanity could do, what they could become. He looked at her directly. We were right. They became something powerful, but maybe not what we feared. Trin nodded. They became what we forced them to be. Suddenly the lights dimmed. A new message arrived. This time directly to Drevik's private channel. No warning, no encryption. Just a video it showed. An old image, Drevik standing in a secret council chamber, raising his hand for the final vote. Behind him, names, faces, evidence it had been recorded, and now it was in human hands. The message ended with a single sentence. Justice begins with the truth. Drevik leaned back in his chair, eyes closed. They're not asking for forgiveness, he whispered. No, Trin replied. They're asking for accountability. Far above, the human fleet moved again. This time, they didn't send warnings. They sent ships to major council planets, positioned carefully, waiting not to attack, but to watch. The galaxy was shifting and the past was no longer buried. Asterisk. The skies above council planets were no longer peaceful. Human ships hovered in silence. They didn't fire. They didn't move. They simply watched. From one system to another, dark vessels floated like sentinels, waiting, unmoving, full of quiet power. No species had ever seen anything like it. Even the most advanced alien fleets couldn't track them. One moment they weren't there. The next they were everywhere. On Neuraxis, a major trade world, people gathered outside government towers, staring at the sky. Above them hung a massive black ship shaped like a crescent moon. Its lights pulsed slowly, as if breathing. Children whispered stories. Adults held their breath. No one dared to speak loud. A single message played across public screens. We are not conquerors, we are witnesses. Inside the council, the panic had turned to silence. They had no answers, no defense, no control. The betrayal was known, the vote exposed, and now the galaxy itself questioned everything the council had claimed for centuries. Worse, some species began to side with the humans, not out of fear, but because truth had power. Trin watched from a private viewing room. She wasn't afraid anymore. She was thoughtful. All her life she had studied what others called myths. Now those myths stood above every planet, not firing, not harming, just revealing. She received a new message, this time from the human ship she had once visited. Come again, alone. She didn't hesitate. The docking bay was dim, filled with glowing lines along the floor. The same human she had met earlier stood waiting. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he handed her a datapad. On it was a list, not names, not locations, but systems, communication networks, banking records, trade routes, weapon codes. All of this, he said, was built on lies. Now, we return control to the people. Trin looked up. You're not here to destroy the council, are you? He shook his head slowly. We're not here to rule. We're here to free the truth. Across the galaxy, things began to change. Human technology moved into old networks quietly. Corruption files were exposed, black market deals were revealed, secret prison locations were uncovered. Everything the council had hidden was now public, and no one could stop it, not even the council itself. Chancellor Drevik sat alone in his quarters. His guards had left, his advisors had disappeared. He knew what was coming. He stared at an old photo on his desk taken before the vote, before the purge of Earth. In it, he stood beside young leaders, all smiling, hopeful. Now most of them were gone, erased by their own choices. The door behind him opened. He didn't turn. "You finally came," Drevik said. A human stood in the doorway, not armed, not armored, just calm. "You helped vote for Earth's destruction," the human said. "I know," Drevik replied. "Buried your guilt behind power." "I did why?" Drevik didn't answer right away. Then, softly he said, "Because I believed we couldn't share the stars. I thought your kind would take everything. I was wrong." The human nodded. "Now the galaxy will decide what justice looks like." Hours later, Drevik's name was added to the final list. He didn't resist. He walked onto a human ship willingly. Some said he faced judgment. Others believed he asked for forgiveness, but no one knew what happened inside. Back on Trin's homeworld, a monument appeared overnight. A tall stone pillar with no guards, no messages, only a carving. "Truth cannot be erased, only delayed." Crowds gathered. Even children understood what it meant. The human fleet, now spread across hundreds of systems, remained still. They had no flags, no orders, no demands, only presence. Their message had been delivered. The galaxy had heard it, and change had begun. The galaxy had changed. Where once the Galactic Council ruled with silence and control, now there was only uncertainty. Old systems collapsed, secrets were exposed, worlds whispered a new name: Earth, a name once forbidden, a name once believed to be lost. But Earth was never gone, it was simply waiting. Trin stood on a quiet balcony on her homeworld, staring at the stars. They looked different now, wider, deeper, alive with meaning. Behind her, broadcasts played scenes from across the Galaxy Council, leaders stepping down, citizens marching for truth, human ships slowly pulling away from some planets, and on every screen, a new flag, a black circle, with a single white star in the center, the symbol of memory, of return. Trin touched the edge of her data tablet. A message blinked. "Final summit begins at sunrise. You are invited." She closed her eyes. The summit would not be about punishment, it would be about rebuilding, and the humans would be there not as enemies, but as witnesses. On the ancient space station known as Aurelus Point, where the first council had once been formed, a new chamber was prepared. It was smaller than the old one, simple, open, no raised platforms, no golden chairs, just a round table, and voices willing to listen. Representatives from 20 species arrived. Most had once believed the human myth was just a story. Now they stood face to face with the truth. The human delegation arrived last. 5 individuals. No guards, no weapons. The leader stepped forward, the same man who had once spoken to Trin. His voice was calm, controlled, but this time it held something new: hope. "We did not return to rule," he said. "We returned because history must be complete." Silence filled the room. Then one voice spoke. It was a young ambassador from a distant moon. "Why didn't you strike us down?" The human looked at her with steady eyes. "Because we remembered who we were," he said. "Even when you tried to erase us." Trin stepped forward, holding the ancient book. "This book carries your story," she said. "I spent my life studying it, and now I ask, what comes next?" The human took the book. He turned to the last page, blank. He placed it on the table and pulled out a pen. With simple, slow strokes, he wrote, "Chapter 1, The Galaxy Awakens." At that moment, thousands of ships across the stars turned and began their slow return to Earth. No destruction, no demands, just departure. But not before leaving behind something powerful on every world. A gift was found: blueprints for clean energy, cures for forgotten diseases, lessons in science, ethics, and survival. And one message repeated in every language: use this wisely, do not forget again. Back on Earth, skies were clear. The cities had changed. No pollution, no poverty, no noise. Forests stretched beside floating towers. Oceans sparkled with life. Children played without fear. A new age had begun. Not one of war, but of balance. A human elder stood by the sea, watching ships return from distant stars. A child stood beside him. "Did they believe we were real?" the child asked. "Not at first," the elder said. "But truth has a way of returning like the tide." In the council records, a new category was created. Not military, not political, but historical. It was titled The Silent Return. Inside it, the full story was stored from the purge of Earth to the final summit. It would never be hidden again. Irene left the summit with peace in her heart. She didn't feel afraid anymore. She felt ready. She knew history was no longer broken, and maybe, someday, her own people would write their truth with the same strength Earth had shown. That the stars watched in silence, but they would never forget. Again. The stars were quiet again. After weeks of silence, fear, and truth-telling, the human fleet began to leave. One by one, the black ships turned away from alien skies and disappeared into deep space. They had come not to conquer but to remind. Now their mission was done. On the planet Aurelus, the council gathered for one final vote, not to hide truth, but to rebuild a new galactic agreement. No lies, no missing history, no secret power. Trin sat at the front table, the ancient human book resting beside her. This time, no one ignored it. This time, everyone listened. The new council would be different. No species would stand above others, no past would be erased. All voices would be heard, for the first time in centuries. The galaxy moved forward together, and at the center of it all was the truth of Earth. Back on Earth, skies were clear. Cities floated beside forests, and oceans shimmered with light. Children played with glowing drones. Elders walked among gardens filled with history. Earth had not become a weapon. It had become a teacher. And now, its people finally rested in a quiet village by a silver lake. A boy sat with his grandfather beneath the stars. The boy looked up and pointed. "Is that the world where they erased us?" The old man smiled gently. "Yes. And it's also the place where we reminded them who we are." "Did we win?" the boy asked. That the old man thought for a moment. "No," he said softly. "We didn't come to win. We came to be remembered." In space, the last human ship passed a silent monument, an old satellite left by the Council decades ago. Once, it had broadcast propaganda against Earth. Now, humans had rewritten its signal. Across the galaxy, it sent a single line. History does not belong to those who bury it. It belongs to those who carry it forward. Trin returned to her people not as a historian but as a voice of change. She was no longer alone in her study of Earth. Now, schools across dozens of worlds taught human history, not just the war, not just the purge, but also the music, the art, the survival, the strength. They taught the story of the silent return. Months later, a new statue was built on Aurelius Point, where the final summit took place. It showed a human holding a book, handing it to an alien child. There were no weapons, no crown, only knowledge at the base of the statue. The final message was carved in every known language. We were never myths, we were never gone, we were always watching. And now we walk beside you. The galaxy had changed. Not with fire, not with fear, but with memory. Humanity had returned, not to take the stars but to remind the stars who they were meant to become. And the stars finally listened.